So this is our very first interview, and I wanted to do it with my soul sister, Bernadette O'Connor, as the start of the Awakening Conversations podcast. So Bernadette is a kinesiologist. We've known each other for over 25 years. And really, I wanted to talk to you about what's happening in the world at the moment, because that is your thing, is energy. And we've had lots of conversations recently, so I thought it was a perfect place to start.
Thanks for throwing me in the deep end around what's happening in the world. Just come in at this biggest awakening time in our recent history. I suppose nobody in the world really has experienced what we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
And I suppose the really interesting thing is that even though, in China things were starting in January, and so we sort of had a bit of a heads up that there was something going on, but it really feels like the energy and the momentum has hit really quickly and really hard fast, which there's a degree of shock around that.
Absolutely.
And I think people go, it depends where people are at in their own growth, in their own awakening, for want of a better word, as to how they're experiencing that. Like that shock, we can go into denial and disconnect, and there's a lot of people in that space. Or we can go into it as space where we are taking conscious action, but also moving within as we navigate through this. So, lots going on.
Well, before was actually happening in the world, and I think the thing at the moment is really the speed of what's happening. You know, even if we talk about just a virus generally, it's like if we all get exposed to this virus, that's great because we'll have immunity for it. But the problem is that we're all getting exposed for the first time very, very rapidly. So the whole system can potentially break down, and we've seen it break down around the world. So it's the speed of this kind of awakening, if we call it that is the thing that I think is the hardest thing for most people.
Yeah, look, I had a moment yesterday where and you and I have spoken lots, and I sort of early December, I said to quite a few people, I feel like there's a tsunami coming, and we've just got to hold on. For me, that was coming personally, not in a devastating way, but I was getting hit by this wave of energy where I was getting very not subtly told to go within, to withdraw, to go into cocoon, and everything kept giving me those signals. But I felt it coming. But even yesterday I had a moment where it was like, okay, even if I felt a change coming, and, in Australia, we had the bushfires. That was a real big energy of change coming, and it was devastating. And there was that sense of, okay, we kind of maybe had a bit of an idea that there was some change happening. But like I was saying, even yesterday, I had this moment where I went, I didn't realise it was going to be this big. I didn't realise it was going to come this intensely.
Yeah.
And I suppose I didn't realise it was going to hit so personally.
Yeah.
So I'm well, my family's well. We're taking precautions. We're in a privileged position that we can be isolating in. But I've got many friends and many in our community who are small to medium businesses who have lost their business. I've got, the gym that I go to shut their doors, all the young trainers there. Some of my good friends who work there have lost their jobs.
Yeah.
I've got friends who are travel agents. Their business is done. I've got the girls that I get my coffee from, the guys and the girls, the young ones that I get my coffee from. They don't have a job. And so these harsh realities are really hitting home much closer. It's hitting everyone. And I was just working with a client and we were having these conversations. Nobody is immune to this hit. It is hitting everyone, no matter how rich you are, how poor you are, how awakened you are, how unawakened you are, what colour your skin, how much celebrity you have, how much money you have. No one is immune. And I think that's really leveling. It's really leveling. Yeah.
Well, I had a moment, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where it was like that feeling of, I want to make sure that the position that I'm in, that I'm supporting people and that I'm helping people as a practitioner, but I also don't want to be part of the problem. So it's like reassess. And the problem, by the problem, I mean I potentially could be posting this virus without having any symptoms. And to I guess to mitigate that risk, I actually tried to find out if I could just get tested so I could see my patients safely, knowing that I was not part of the problem. But I couldn't because I didn't have any symptoms and I hadn't been traveling. And so that left me in a position where I didn't feel like I want to still be helping people, but I also don't want to be spreading the virus to people that are vulnerable, that we know that are vulnerable in the community. And I see elderly, I see new babies, I see people going through chemo, and I have to be really, really careful. So I've kind of reassessed how I'm doing everything as well. But so many businesses, millions of people already have lost it, and it's exactly right. No one's actually immune. It doesn't matter if you're female or male. It doesn't matter if you're really healthy or really unhealthy. I mean, you're probably at more risk, obviously, if you're unhealthy, but it's still a shock. Some people are getting affected, and some people who you think, oh well, they're not that healthy, could be at risk, are not getting affected. So one of those really fun ones.
And look, and I think the thing is, you saying it'd be great, and I think this is where we have to keep. And I've been speaking about this quite a lot. We have to keep working with our masculine and our feminine. So we have to use that masculine and the left brain, if you will, to really get good quality data. And we have to bring that in. And then we have to use our feminine, that intuitive, wise woman who feels into what's going on. And then combined, we make conscious choices. I think one of the things why I consciously chose to start working online as well, because I do want to help people. People need help. If you and I can help people to minimize the physical and emotional stresses on their system, we take stress out, their immune system is going to be in a better position to not fight, but to meet this virus. So it's like, well, how can I continue to serve? But whilst also, like you said, mitigating the risk of being a transmitter. And I think the really interesting thing around this virus, and the bit that I suppose is of most concern for me, is that we can be carrying it and be asymptomatic. And so even if you had gone and got a test and been cleared, so it wasn't in your system at that point in time, so you go, okay, I can continue to work with clients, but then that first person that you see may transmit to you, and then you're a carrier. And I think that's the thing that my belief, again, it's only my belief, it's my perspective, it's my intuitive knowing, is I think it's that nature, because I really truly believe we are being called to isolate, to lock down. And these are the beautiful challenges that come when we lock down, because of exactly that. Because when we come back, when we come in, we're going to the challenges are going to start rising to the surface. The light is going to be shone on the challenges, because we can't run away from it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so then we have to be in it. And we as a society, we as humanity are so bloody good at, I'm going to try not to swear, but bloody's all right, so bloody good at not running away, suppressing this feels uncomfortable, I'll take some pain medication. This feels uncomfortable, I'll have a drink of wine. This feels uncomfortable because my children are really annoying me. I'll jump on social media, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll run away. Guess what? When we're being called to come in, we have to be present with the challenges in our life instead of running away from them. And I think the nature of the virus, that it's not, yes, it's a deadly virus, but it's not potent in that it's not going to kill. It can be very, very mild. It cannot touch people, but it is so contagious that we don't know where we're carrying it. So therefore, it's almost like the only effective mitigator is for us to isolate, to come into the cave, to come into the cocoon. It's going to get bloody uncomfortable.
That was going to be my
for a lot of people.
So what do you think the purpose, like the higher purpose of let's say, I mean, in Australia, the fires and globally this virus, what do you think the big thing is about?
Look, you and I could talk about it. I get a little bit wary talking to this on a large platform, because it's my perspective. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily truth. It's a perspective that I have from a higher level. What do I see?
What do you think the gifts out of this are going to be then? If you don't want to kind of...
No, well, look, I'll see. What I see is that this is a gift to our world to come in and make us wake up, to be stripped of the privileges, to be stripped of the toilet paper. You know, as I've been saying to my children, it's a privilege for you to get an education, because there are millions and millions and millions of children around the world who don't get an education. Mm-hmm. It's a privilege for you to go traveling overseas whenever you want. That's a privilege. It's a privilege to wipe your bottom with toilet paper. Yeah. And all of these things, while seeming silly, they're things we just take for granted. Definitely. We just take for granted. And you know, and I'm guilty of that. You're guilty of that. There's this mindlessness that has come in the way that we live our life. And our lives are so complex. They're so busy that we don't have time to move back. And I really do feel that this is when we're being stripped bare of our privileges. Like, God forbid we can't go and get our eyelashes done and our eyebrows done. And I've got two beautiful clients. One does eyelashes, one does eyebrows. And both of those gorgeous girls had to close their business yesterday. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, you know, I can't go to the gym. My children can't go to school. I can't freely go to the supermarket and not be consciously aware of how I'm interacting with other people. Yeah. I have to be really mindful. When I go to the toilet how much toilet paper I'm using. Because we might run out. And I know that this is funny, but I used to be one of those people when I'd be on the toilet, I'd be daydreaming and I'd just be folding the paper and have a big clump. My husband used to go mad on me because I would waste so much toilet paper. And now I'm a 2-square girl. Okay,
well, I remember my dad had a rule when we were young that we only needed 1 square each time we went.
1 square. Shit. Rationing in your house. But, you know, and even in the way I'm eating, I'm mindful of how I'm eating and how much I'm eating. Yeah. And I'm reminding my kids to be, you know, it's like we can't just duck to the supermarket because I'm not going to put myself or my family at risk. I'm not going to sacrifice. You know, we've sacrificed to come into isolation. I'm not going to just be ducking out every 2 days because we've run out of this and that. Mm. Let's be mindful how much toilet paper we're using. Let's be mindful of the food that we're eating. But more importantly, let's be mindful. We're in a bubble. We're in a space. We're in a small space with other people now. Let's be mindful of how we're engaging with those other people. Yeah. And I think by being stripped away from community, by being stripped away from the opportunity to go wherever we want, whenever we want, being stripped away from the global and coming back in here, we are being asked to be grateful for and remember the value of community, you know, our small community. So shopping local, like my heart breaks that all these beautiful small businesses in our community are done. Mm. And I have to look at that and go, well, how have I supported them anyway? You know, so there's a lot to learn. I fundamentally think that, yes, we need to have our nervous systems calm as we navigate this. So that's, you know, where you and I can help people. Mm. So there's our system being calm, but then there's the opportunity and the gift of having time and space. And we must use this time and space not just to be calm, but to go into solitude. And solitude is being by myself. So in this cave or cocoon, we have to avoid continuing our old habits of, how can I distract myself? Oh, I'll just sit in front of social media, or I'll flick through the news, or I'll watch movies or Netflix or whatever, or play video games. That's a distraction. This is a gift.
Yeah.
So many of us have not had this time to just be for,
Ever.
when were you not busy? From the time we've known each other as 18-year-olds, we've never not been busy doing. And now we've got this time, and we have to be mindful how we use that time as mothers, as practitioners, but also make sure that we use this time to go inward and, really connect in here and remember what is in here. Yeah.
And the other thing that I was just thinking about is kind of like that cocoon that you said, but also it's like the hibernation period. So it's like, digging into the ground, and it's like, a lot of grief counsellors talk about the seasons of grief, and, summer, autumn, winter and spring. And this is like the winter forced hibernation period. And so like, what's going to come out the other side is like new growth and new blossoming. So like I really feel the positive parts that are going to manifest, but like the suffering of many people in the meantime is going to be quite difficult. It's going to be difficult to witness. Like in terms of me, I think, financially it's going to be really stressful because both Wynn and I are self-employed and all that, and we've got 5 kids and blah, 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 blah. But I kind of know that we're going to be okay. So that's good. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of suffering, and that part is kind of hard for us to get our heads around. And everyone's in such different phases of their lives. And some people it's not going to bother at all, and other people it's going to be really hard. I had a retired lady in who's German. She's been through starvation before. She's had cancer, like she's been through, and she was thinking that this part of her life was going to be easier. And she came in crying the other day because she just said, like we're just watching the stock market go down, like all her money's in stocks. And she's like, it's going to take 10 years and we're not even going to be alive when the stocks go
to
down.
Rebuild that.
Yeah. So it's, the suffering for people is going to be really difficult.
And I think that's when we go.
Trauma of that as well, like that long-term trauma. So it's like if we can kind of look to the higher purpose of this, for me, I find that easier to get through these hard times when I kind of go beyond what we're going through and think when I'm there, then I will understand a bit more. I will understand what the purpose was, even though there was some suffering, which obviously I'm not disregarding that.
Yeah. I think and again, I think that's why you and I and many are really, sounds a bit silly, but very important in this, and that we can do our work even if it's not hands-on, because, the impact of trauma. And interestingly, that's my book. I stumbled across this book the other day, last week, and it's just a simple little book, and this Australian woman has written it. It's called I Choose Alina. And look, it's a simple little book about a girl, and a woman, she's only 26 now. She was a gymnast, and at 15 she was raped. She never told anybody. She never spoke of it. And her physical body broke down in the most horrific way, like undiagnosed endometriosis, undiagnosed Crohn's disease, complete and utter chronic pain, agony, and nobody could see it, so nobody could treat it. But she hadn't spoken of her trauma. And one of the things, so I don't know, I came across it, and I know this stuff, this stuff, but it was a nice little reminder. It's when trauma has the ability, because a traumatic experience will imprint itself in our cells and deep within, in our brain, basically. And if trauma is tended to early, then it can be released. It can be resolved. Trauma that is suppressed, trauma that is not acknowledged, trauma that is not tended to has lasting, devastating effects. So I think there's a real opportunity as we are in this space to help people alleviate the trauma impact of this loss. When we talk about hibernating or cave or cocoon or any of those metaphors, and it really is coming back into that cyclical nature or cyclical cycle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nature has these innate cycles, which we've stopped living to. Summer we get sun, but apart from, winter we get cold, but we don't honour, we don't listen. Women don't honour and listen their menstrual cycles, the moon cycles, any of those. We just don't listen and honour those cycles. We just keep doing the same, more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. So it's almost like, yes, we have been forced into a winter, into the cave, into the cocoon. And the reason I like the analogy of the cocoon is what was the caterpillar has to go in and it dies. It dies. And there is so much that is going to be dying individually and collectively. Mindsets are going to die. Ways of living are going to die. People are going to die. There's so many parts that are going to die. If we surrender into that and allow that shedding to happen, like instead of going, like my children, the first 2 days they weren't at school, they were in mass resistance. I was the worst person in the world because they were trying to hold on to what they wanted, which was, I want to hold on to seeing my friends. I want to hold on to school. And I had to talk to them about, if we just let it go, if you just surrender to it, it's part of the bigger picture. This isn't just about you. If you surrender to if you let go of what's being taken from you, it's going to be easier. So if we choose to surrender and not fight what's happening, this cocoon, the dying off, the shedding, we'll move through it a lot quicker. And we will also move through it with a lot more grace. And if we can be present in and own what we're feeling as we move through it, then the imprint of the trauma is going to be less when we get to the other side. Because the butterfly that's going to emerge, which is our humanity and which is us individually, we don't want the wings of that butterfly to be carrying so much trauma that she can't rise.
Exactly.
There's another really beautiful metaphor about the phoenix rising from the burnt ashes. We want that phoenix.
My meditation recently, and
we want that phoenix to be rising without the trauma. Of course, there's going to be devastation, but if we can be helping people to move through it and teaching people how to move through it, and the best way to move through it is to be with it, to be present in it. I've got the kids each morning when we sit down before we start doing work. I've just said to them, right, today I am feeling, and they're just writing a little paragraph. So my kids are 12, 10 and 8. Today I'm feeling, and the first couple, I'm feeling angry with mum because she's not letting me go to school. I'm mad that I can't see my friends. I'm angry that I don't get to choose what I want to do. And I'm like, great. Because what those 3 little peeps are feeling is reflective of what lots of people in Australia are feeling. The rest of the parts of the world are further ahead. But, that's the people, as an example, because it wasn't the only place where it was happening, but as an example, on Bondi Beach on the weekend, they're going, I don't want to give up my freedom to go to the beach.
Yeah.
And so they were fighting that. And it's when we stop fighting that and surrender in. And like my kids now, what are we on? Whatever day today is, Wednesday, Thursday, what day is it? Thursday. They're in it. They're in the flow. They're in that. They know what they're doing. They've figured out how I can have a bit of control over this. Like, so my 10-year-old Lucia, yesterday morning, she got up and she wrote the timetable of what she wants to do during the day.
Yeah.
And so I'm just guiding her. So they're figuring out how to work in this cocoon, but they're losing a lot as they go, but that's part of it. And, teaching them, the next generation coming through, about what's going on and perhaps why is this happening. It's a very firm hand. Very firm hand on, I saw a thing on Facebook or somewhere that said, does anyone else feel like humanity is a naughty kid and it's just been sent to the naughty corner. And I was like, And, we've talked about this before about the different aspects of the mother energy, the divine mother energy. And one aspect which has been very hidden and suppressed is the fierce mother or the dark mother. The dark mother who will come in as a fierce, destructive force
if
for
she
you
has
to wake up. If she has to wake you up.
Yeah.
Now, we chatted about this, about how the fires coming through was like, whoa, she's angry, she's fierce, and she's getting us to wake up. And I didn't quite foresee how
I feel all of that in
energy.
me, but I felt it more personally. I couldn't foresee this at all as well. And then another thing I wanted to ask you about, which I think is kind of where you're going, it's like, so you said, like if there's trauma and you kind of work on it in the short, like close to when the trauma happens, you can kind of gracefully kind of move through it more easily. So do you think that's part of it? We've had this like earth trauma now, building and building and building and building and not healing as we go.
Wow.
And it's like now it's like, here you go. It's like
wow.
It has to happen like this so people transform, because the little gentle things that we could have shifted along the way that we've resisted and resisted and resisted because we don't want to change our lifestyles, or we don't want to work on different energy systems, or we don't want to, whatever it is, it's like it's now gotten to a point where it can no longer continue like that. And so it's the big bang.
And it's such a beautiful, not beautiful, but it's such an intriguing way to describe it, because yes, with trauma, suppressed trauma, emotional trauma in particular, or damage, if something has been traumatized, it's so often suppressed or overlooked, but over time it will start to give us the little nudges. So women our age, and you would have seen this as well.
While you're talking about this, what's in my head is Mother Earth and women's suppression for so long, tying into everything that you're about to say.
And look, exactly, because women our age, when we don't listen to the nudges, the little nudges, it's like, I've got a sore throat, I keep getting throat infection, I keep getting UTIs, but it's okay. There are all these signs of inflammation in the body, and all these signs that our immune system is not working in the way that it's designed to work. And it gets to a point where women of our age and younger, but we start to get these autoimmune diseases bouncing through, because it's like the body is screaming at us to take notice. And what's it going to take? Well, I'm going to shut down your endocrine system. I'm going to cause mass inflammation. I'm going to cause you pain. I'm going to cause you dysfunction so you can't operate optimally. I'm going to cause you such fatigue that you have to stop. Sadly, many women keep pushing through those symptoms. But it is very much, until it gets to the point where women are brought to their knees, like literally brought to their knees. And that's why this book is intriguing, because she's literally brought to her knees for 5 years and just keeps fighting it until she literally is dying. And maybe that is Mother Earth, the divine Mother Earth. We have been traumatizing her mindlessly, not realizing the impact that we're having because of our actions. Or even if we do realize what we're doing, we continue to do it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the nudges along the way, and it's like we didn't listen. I don't believe in the concept of punishment. I don't think this is punishment.
No.
I think this is a gift. I think this is a wake up from Mother Earth. And, one of the most beautiful wins of this experience is she's breathing. She's breathing. The pollution has lifted in a couple of weeks. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at that image behind you, which I love from Zanzibar. But that aqua water, that aqua clear water of pristine Zanzibar is now what is in the canals of Venice.
That's crazy.
Because we've stopped disregarding. And, the thought 2 months ago that there would be no planes in the sky was like impossible.
Oh, of course.
And yet we've been grounded. And it's like, and she is breathing. And I think that's one of the things as well when I look at the nature of this virus, that it gets into our lungs and it stops us from breathing. We have been suffocating the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
We have been, and this virus getting into our lungs. And then I thought about, one of the things that's happening with this is there is such grief for the loss of my loss of freedom, my loss of business, my loss of income, my loss of loved ones, my loss of connection, all the loss. So there is grief. And from a Chinese medicine perspective and metaphysical perspective, the energy of grief sits in our lungs. So you may often see people, I know with my mum, and I've seen it in other clients, when my dad passed away 6 months after that, and then for every anniversary for about 3 years, she got chest infections. So it's the energy of unresolved grief. So then I kind of have gone, wow, this virus is affecting our lungs, stopping us from being able to breathe effectively. And then we're grieving. So we're bringing this energy in which is going to block our ability to breathe. But I also think it's what we are. Humanity is grieving, is the loss of the simple life. The loss of the simplicity of family, of connection, of real food, of stopping and pausing, of eating together.
The cyclical
listening to our bodies.
For the moon.
Because we all got caught up in it so busy. And, people go, oh, for the good old days. I'd do anything for the good old days. And I think we're given the opportunity to go live a simple life for 2 weeks in lockdown, or a month in lockdown, or 6 months in lockdown. Live a simple life.
Yeah. And just see how it goes. It's almost like a little test, isn't it? It's a little trial for us, You're forced to go into your cocoon. You're forced to be only with your families. And a lot of people are freaking out about that. I must say, I was thinking about me and my 5 kids at home for however long was a bit overwhelming. But so far, day 3, we're actually doing pretty well.
I saw a thing last night. My cousin sent it to our family group, and it's a little video of an old couple. And they're sitting there and they said, so you've been married for 60 years, but this virus, this coronavirus, means that we're going to have to quarantine. Now you've got 2 options. Option A is you quarantine together, just the 2 of you. Option B is, and the old lady goes, I'll take B. Can I take B? Is it okay to take B? And I just couldn't stop laughing, because that's the nature of, people talk about getting together at Christmas. Oh, my God, I hate Christmas because I have to be with my family, and it brings up stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be uncomfortable. My concern, and I do have different aspects of genuine concern, and my empath, which is often very well managed with my boundaries, is kind of a little bit, I think of those families where there's mental health, where there's domestic violence, where there's alcohol abuse, where there's drug abuse.
Yeah, because of their discomfort's going to get more intense, and so those behaviours can potentially,
not potentially, they will be heightened.
Yeah.
When we're uncomfortable, when we feel under threat, we don't just, the threat response, as you know, is fight, flight, freeze. More often than not, in those situations, it's a fight response.
Yeah.
And that's horrific.
Yeah.
That's horrific. That is not a safe, gentle cocoon. And so I really feel for those people, and I suppose I pray, or I set intention that, in that space, they soften into each other.
Oh, that was the other thing, that it's like kind of testing out that simple life again. People, some of the things that have been interesting are like the things that are going out of stock. all the things to make things. And I've been part of that. I've made sure I bought almonds and dates and goji berries and cacao, and I've got enough so I can make my protein balls, and they're just so decadent and filling and fulfilling, and everyone loves them, that type of thing. Whereas a lot of the time I don't get time to make them.
Yeah.
And I went to buy veggies, and I wasn't thinking, I know it sounds ridiculous, I wasn't thinking, in 2 weeks I'm going to have veggies that are going to sustain us. I've just been meaning to make my veggie patch for a very long time, and I haven't had a chance. So I thought it's a good way to get the kids out in the garden, but I can't buy any seedlings.
Yeah, I know.
And then I thought, okay, what else was I going to do? There's been 3 or 4 things. I'm just going to go look, and I'm like, how come everyone's got the same idea?
Everyone's one step ahead of you.
Oh yeah,
I saw in England, in the UK, that chickens are live chickens, not chickens.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It's and I was like,
they've gone out of stock.
Get some eggs, and they're but chickens are going out of stock as well. The chicken market has gone crazy.
We'd have to get, if we got 1 chicken, then we get 1 egg a day if we didn't stress it out by watching when it's going to lay. And I'm like, then we'd have to cut it into 5.
Well, I listened to Costa talking about how to look after your chickens, and he's like, the biggest problem is the foxes get them. People don't build the chicken pens well enough. So all these people are going to go out and buy chickens, and the foxes are going to be having a great time.
I'm laughing because we had chickens when we were kids. And I actually remember this. I must have been about 4 and my sister Bridget was about 5, and she hadn't started school. And I've got this really clear memory of, we saw one of the chickens about to lay its egg. So it's it was birthing. Yeah. So the white, and we chased it around the yard to try and catch it. I had this really clear memory of racing around the yard trying to catch it. Imagine trying to birth with somebody.
Oh my God. That's horrific.
But however, let me link that one. It's called a conjunction. I learned that when I was doing grammar half an hour ago with my little boy. Conjunction, let's link that. We are trying to birth a new world.
We are.
Right?
Yeah.
We can't be stressed as we're trying to birth a new world, because we won't birth very well. You know how it is to birth. I was privileged to be with you when you birthed your beautiful baby boy. If you're stressed, it doesn't work very well. Okay? So if we can minimize the stress in this discomfort and accept. So for your beautiful followers, your friends, your family, your clients who are going to be listening to this, many of them I know are also leaders.
Yes.
So any of us who are aware, then I believe we have a responsibility to support others as they transition through this. It takes courage to step up and have a voice, but if we can show people the way, if we can be leaders. Now, all leaders aren't necessarily in Parliament House, nor are all leaders on a stage, nor are all leaders Oprah, but we're all leaders and we all have the potential and I believe the responsibility to be leaders if we know how to transition with grace. Then I think we all have a responsibility to step out of our own way and step up and show people how, support them as they transition, because like that chicken running around the backyard, we are not going to birth if we're under stress very well.
Well, that would be a really great place to leave it. And before we...
Really? We could talk for hours.
I know we could talk for hours, but that's probably, regarding this particular topic, it's probably a good place to leave it, because it's about that awakening and rebirthing of a new world. And again, if we want that, if we want to move through that as easily as possible, reduce the stress. So, I mean, there's lots of practical things we can do to reduce stress, but that's maybe another topic. Can you give our listeners maybe just where they can find you, and if they need any assistance or if they want to connect with you?
So I had, when I was in my cocoon, I'd withdrawn completely from social media, and I was loving the fact that I was disconnected from that and I was connected here. But last Friday I got a little tap on the shoulder going, it's time. So you can find me. I'm doing a Facebook Live every night at around 8:00, just holding space for people. Whatever comes out, comes out. So I am under Emotional Energy Exchange Bernadette O'Connor. And I am doing all my work with clients online. So it's just, that I can connect with you energetically because we are all connected, and I'm able to connect into people's energy to support you in that way. So my website is emotionalenergyexchange.com, and you can book in directly through there. So at the moment, I've included just 30-minute sessions, which I'm calling, because I normally do an hour and a half for an initial, an hour for a follow-up, but I'm doing half an hour sessions, which I'm just calling like a touch base and reset. Mm-hmm. It might just be connect with somebody who gets it.
Yeah.
And what do I need? Quickly, Bernadette, what do I need to do for the next week or 2 weeks to just reset my energy so I can keep navigating through this with grace?
Yeah.
So I actually think they're really important little sessions.
Yeah.
Even for those of us who already know what to do, but sometimes we just kind of like get a bit overwhelmed in it. So emotionalenergyexchange.com.
Okay, great.
I think that's all.
Cool. All right. Awesome talking to you. Thank you so much for being my very first person to chat to. Love you lots. Stay safe.
So I just had this moment of who would have thought 25 years ago when we were meeting, 25, 26 years ago, meeting on university campus and spending a lot of that time drinking way too much alcohol, that one day we would be talking about humanity awakening and the birthing of humanity. Who would have thought?
Exactly. You never know where it's going to go.
Never know. Trust in the unknown, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Love you lots. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
If you loved or learnt something in this episode, share it. And don't forget to subscribe. I look forward to bringing you next week's Awakening Conversation. Have a wonderful week.